Thanks for joining us. Now let's start the show. Snap, what's that? Thought it was a cryptid. Gone in a flash, too bad that you missed it. Dropped and then lifted, gone in an instant. It broke all the branches, its feet left an imprint. Got it on camera, my brother's a witness. On the roof coming down the chute night before Christmas. Covered in hair, but it wasn't a bear. Fathers hide your daughters, tell their mothers beware. It was ugly, yeah, and a bit intense. Don't know what it wanted when it unzipped the tent. My sister went and called the law on me. Yeah, they showed up, but they just made a mockery. The Sasquatch is watching me, the dog man is stalking me. God dang, I got little people on the balcony. The town's talking about me, and I know that they're doubting me. I'm living with the cryptids, and I think they got it out for me. I told those guys, but they rolled their eyes. It's the stupid truth, I never told no lies. I can't hold my tongue for what's been done. The truth is the truth, I gotta tell someone. I know what I saw, I don't know what it is. Let me tell all y'all, you gotta listen to this. So I called the show to let you know, to get it off my chest. So here we go. If you've had a cryptid sighting, or have experienced some other type of strange, unexplainable event, and you would like to be on the show, email us at unscriptedpodcast@yahoo.com. That's unscriptedpodcast, UNSCRYPTID podcast @yahoo.com.
Hello out there, and welcome to another episode of the UnsCryptid podcast. I want to thank everybody for hanging out with us tonight. I am Wayne, and I am joined tonight, as always, by my good buddy, Mr. Duffy. How's it going tonight, Duff?
Hey, I'm doing great, Wayne. How are you, buddy?
I'm doing well, man. Excited about tonight's show. What about you?
Oh yeah, we got a buddy of mine on, Chris Merola from Connecticut, and he's written a book called The One Who Runs and Hides, and he's going to be telling some stories about his experiences with these creatures.
Right on. He is also going to share where you guys can go and see some of his videos. He actually has a YouTube channel called Chris Merola. That's Merola. So you guys will want to go and check that out as well. Yeah, man, I'm excited about the show. So we're not going to spend a whole lot of time yapping before we bring him on. So if you're ready, I am too.
Yeah, let's get Chris on the line.
All right, we are joined tonight by Chris Merola. Chris, how you doing tonight, buddy?
Doing great, Wayne. How you doing?
Doing well. First off, before we really get started, I want to get a little bit of backstory on you. How did you get into this topic, this crazy world of Bigfoot? Did you have an encounter, or how did you get started? And before then, what was were you a believer or not? What was your level of knowledge?
Wayne, I was always a believer, but to get started, I did not ask for this. About Bigfoot, I had no interest in looking for Bigfoot. I do love the outdoors. I take my son with me out fishing and out in the wilderness, and that is something that's just been ingrained with me since I was a little kid. And back when I was going to high school, I had a friend that I grew up with, and I was going through divorce. I went through divorce and I was having some hard times. And in 2008, my friend called me up and says, "Listen, I have some family members that have property up in the northwest corner of Connecticut. And they have a cabin there, and no one's been in that cabin for over like 8 years. And the people that own the property had deceased in the mid and late 90s. And he says, if you want to get away with your son and go up there, come on up." And now this property, Wayne, it had over 800 acres of land.
Wow.
The property was just, it was just untouched,
So kind of
really.
like grown up a little bit.
It was, yeah, yes, sir. Yes, the big house, the mansion, it was deteriorating, and it was sad to see. And my friend says, Chris, if you don't mind, there's a cabin over there. I said, great. So I went up there and I looked at it before I got my son to come over, and so I cleaned it up and I grabbed my son and I said, I got a surprise for you. And we went up there, and it was just a beautiful spot after cleaning it, and it has a little pond in front of it. And he loved it. I loved it. And it was the first night I was at the cabin with my son. And thank God he's a heavy sleeper, because we were just lying in bed. And about 1:30 in the morning, I woke up to the sound of thunder. I mean, actually, like cracking, like thunder coming down. And I'm going, what is this? What is this noise? And it just persisted. So there were no floodlights or outdoor lights there around the cabin. And so whatever was making that noise, I didn't turn the lights inside the cabin to let them see movement. So I just kept it dark. My son was just out sleeping away. And, I was crawling around trying to look through the windows in the back and on the side, trying to see what was out there. And I didn't have a flashlight with me. That was one thing I didn't bring with me, unfortunately. So I just stayed in the cabin looking out, and it persisted from about 1:30 in the morning till about 5 o'clock, not stopping. And so my heart was racing. I just stayed up. I grabbed a couple of the knives that I had for just for eating and stuff while we were up there, and just waited till dawn to come and appear. And then I went outside, and I could say, okay, I didn't bring in my bow. I didn't bring my rifle. I didn't bring anything like that. It was just me and him staying up at the cabin. And all I had was my fishing poles and stuff. And so I kept on walking in the direction of where the sounds were coming from in the woods. And I came upon these strips about 7 feet long and I'd say about 6 inches wide and about 4 inches deep of this cathedral pine that was once hit by lightning or something. It was halfway, the middle of it was removed. And these strips of wood from it were laid out on the ground like a pattern. It was just lying there almost like a half circle. And I was going, what on earth did this? Now, I had no idea anything about. I knew Bigfoot was out in Washington and Northern California and Oregon out in the West. So I was just puzzled. But the strength and time of ripping all these pieces of wood, and there were like 11 of them. And so I, later on when my son woke up, I just brought him out, just and took him to the site of where this occurred. And I said, well, look, son, just trying to say there's something out here, just to let you know, if you want to leave, you can. But I don't know what this is, and he was 8 years old, going on 9. And so no, he said, no, let's stay, Dad, and all this. So
what did he think when he saw that bark? Did he think it was natural, or did he just...
No, I told him it wasn't natural. I just told him that, and the way the pattern was, Duffy, it was just like a perfect, like, half circle. I mean, the lines went from one to the side to there, angle to the top, all the way to the right, making a half circle with these long pieces of wood that was ripped off the tree. And so I said, well, I said to him, well, what do you want to do today? You want to go tubing down the Farmington River, and then said, yeah, that'd be great. So we went down to the Farmington River and stuff, and then we stopped and got a few more supplies on our way home. And when we came home, Wayne and Duffy, there was, I would say, a 20-inch Louisville Slugger of a crap, a dump, right on just before we got onto the steps to get onto the into the cabin. There was this just waiting for us on the path right there. We had to step over to get onto the deck to go. And I'm looking at it, I'm going, wait a minute. And we're both looking at it. And I have a little boy with me. And I know from being in and outdoors and hunting and fishing that this is a mark. This is a statement. This is letting you know that just like with other animals that do, with bears or deer, it was a saying that I'm in this territory.
So something left you a steamer basically on your front porch when you got back.
Yeah, on the steps just before I had to step over to get on the front porch, but it was right
wow.
there, and it was huge. I mean, straight and huge. It wasn't like plop, on top of each other. It was just laid out, and you couldn't, and I'm going like, wow, this is getting really odd, and and I didn't know, I told them, well, there's some animal here. It's obvious on that, and so he still wanted to stay with me up there, and I did too, but I was concerned. So nothing after that happened really for a week. We were up there, no, for like 5 days. And then I had a friend come over that I was seeing, a girl, and she was really nice. She was a city girl, and I said, I'm here with my son. Why don't you come on up and enjoy the property? We have it all to ourselves, over 800 acres, and you can see it. And I'll show you around. And so she came up, and we were barbecuing. So we were having a barbecue, and it was just about, I'd say, the sun had just gone down, so there was still light. And we're eating on the deck our dinner, and all of a sudden, and the only way I can describe this sound is from someone that I'm taking this quote from that was exactly what we heard. If you could get a man and douse him in gasoline, set him on fire, and have the strength of an elephant trumpeting for like 20 to 30 seconds, no less than 20, with the power of that. And we were sitting on the table, and it just blew through the air. I mean, went through us and so on, and it didn't stop. So I get up, and I walk to the corner of the cabin where exactly those tree strips of bark were done previously in that area. And I walk in, and I'm looking over there, and then I turn around, and my son and my girlfriend are missing. So I walk into the cabin, and it was almost comical, even though it was a scary moment. Right. But there's my girlfriend at the time and my son going through the kitchen drawers trying to pick out knives. I mean, it was like I'm sitting there, and she's a city girl. She did bring a flashlight with her, which I told her to do when she came up. So I grabbed the flashlight from her. I took one of the knives with me, and I went down the porch, and I went into the area. I just went down, and I needed to know what was going out here. And so I went down, started looking in the light. It was now, sun was gone, but I'm flashing because I don't want to see. And they're screaming at me from the porch, saying, "Get back here! You're crazy! Don't." And for some reason, I just needed to know. And after about, I'd say, 10 minutes of going around and looking in that area, I didn't see nothing. So I came back to the cabin. The next day, we were like all leaving, and she was asking me what is that sound, and I said I really don't know. And that was the first time with an encounter, Wayne and Duffy, that now I know what it was, and I've seen him so many times, but now that was where my curiosity even geared up. So
I'm curious, Chris, I know you filmed one on camera. You had it's not the best video, but you were able to capture part of this creature's upper body on camera, like removing a tree and then walking across the frame or something. But did you see the actual creature before you filmed that, or was it the filming of it that made you realize what it actually was? Or how did you actually realize 100% sure that it was Sasquatch on the property?
Well, before I filmed it on that, I knew it was Sasquatch because at that time in 2008, thank God for the show. I know it's gotten some bad
Bad press,
reps on it, press, but finding Bigfoot, and so every time it was on, I would record it, whatever, and I was listening to that sound of what we heard.
Yeah.
And it wasn't till they went to Michigan and they went to see this lady, and she said, "Oh yeah." He says, "Oh well, when was the last time you heard Bigfoot?" She says, "Oh, I have a recording. It was last night." So the whole group of BFRO, they went to her house and they played her sound, and that's exactly what I heard. Now filming it, now I've posted 1, 2, 3 videos I've caught of Bigfoot. The last one last year was "This is Bigfoot," I wrote, and it was Bigfoot in its head and the eyes beaming out of his skull that I videoed last year.
About the illumination coming from his eyes, or was it
from the eyes? Oh yeah, it was just that's the crazy thing about with Bigfoot and my belief on the paranormal side with them, which I know there is a paranormal side. And if anybody understands Bigfoot or knows Bigfoot, unless they didn't do it in front of them and they didn't have that experience or encounter, they definitely are paranormal. They can stealth, disappear, because I was up there for 12 years now, up in the mountain, and I was able to stay there. Once my friend introduced me, the brothers, the sons that own the property, they said, "Okay, Chris, just when you're up there, watch the place, keep an eye on it, help with the fencing and things like that." Yeah. So I said, "Sure." I got to film them. That one film, the bear climbed up the tree that I had the trail cam on, and so he just chewed it. He chewed 2 of them. Really? And so one of them I was able to replace and fix, but I couldn't put it outside because the rain or the weather elements would affect it. So I put it on the porch underneath the screen part of the porch that was covered. The deck was open, and then part of it was covered in with a screen top, awning and everything. So I put it in that part, and one day I came back and I'm looking at it, and it was done at 7:30 in the morning in May of 2000, and the first one was 2000, and I think 15. And there it was, first you see a hand going up this tree, and in the background there must have been others, because you see these branches shaking back in the background. And as this hand goes up this tree, the hand almost looks, Duffy, transparent. It looks like you can see through it. And then all of a sudden the hand comes back down, and then it just sort of like you don't see what's happening right away. And then at the end of the video, now I had these trail cameras timed for 30 seconds. I figured 30 seconds should do it, because a lot of times you get birds and squirrels and possums and deer and bear and all this stuff. So I did a 30-second, and then at the end, it walks by the screen porch, and it's almost see-through, which everybody doesn't seem to understand. They look at it, but it's showing its stealth or transparency move when you look at it, and it's right at the end. His arm goes waving up, and then the other one, I got one of its head that I filmed accidentally, and that one you can see where his head is turning, and I had somebody go over it and try to bring out the eyes more and pronouncing of the face as it's turning and looking at me. And that one's longer. So on that. And
okay, now Chris, now these videos, tell our listeners where they can see these, if you don't mind. Are they on YouTube?
Oh yeah, everything Chris Merola YouTube. Yep. Yeah, Chris. I just left it. I didn't do Bigfoot Chris, whatever. At the time, I was just, and I still am, and I've been doing this since 2008, and traveling down around the country where people invite me to visit their property and do some investigating, and and I just make aware what to look for when if you have an idea, because I had no idea what to look for when Bigfoot was around up at the cabin. So I show how the snaps are, the symbols are, just ways and indications with the big X's and the Y's and so on.
So you go around just kind of educating people on what to look for?
Yeah, people that really are interested, they contact me, and they'll send me photos and says, is this this tree broken down, is this part of I can't say that really is done by Bigfoot, but if they show me things that I've seen that I post on my videos and stuff, I'll say, yeah, you got a neighborhood, they're in your neighborhood. So
I had somebody contact me on YouTube and asked about Bigfoot in Connecticut. I directed her to Chris, and I think you ended up contacting young lady and going down and checking out the area for her, maybe.
Yeah, I did. That's right. I went. She was just over the border, Connecticut and Rhode Island, and I went to see it. And I let her know, yeah, Bigfoot is here. You have it on the property out there. So because they saw something in the distance.
Yeah, she saw one, and she asked me, "Do they have dreadlocks? Does it look like they have dreadlocks?" And I thought maybe she did see one. Chris went down and investigated.
Yes, and I let her know, and these beings, I call them forest beings, because I believe they're here. Myself, in my opinion, they're here for protecting the forest, and being 12 years up at the cabin, at first, Wayne and Duffy, they hated my guts. I mean, in the beginning, they hated my guts, and they saw that I wasn't leaving. And and on this property, there were meadows for like 30-acre meadows, and then you'd see another one for 20 acres, and another one for 10. And I would go out there, bring my cooler and my telescope, and I would just stay out there for hours during the night, looking at the stars and stuff. And if they had multiple chances of hurting me, they never did. They then did wood knocks, they banged rocks together. They went after a few years there, they almost got to where like play games with me. I would have my tiki torches out in front, and in the morning I'd come out and one would be missing, on that. And they would put things against my door. So when I opened the door in the morning to go out onto the deck and have my coffee and just look at the wilderness, I had to really open the door hard, because they would leave the furniture, or I had a door stopper that was a 20-pound duck made out of iron. They put it up against the doors. So, and then they would jump when I'm sleeping to wake me up they would like jump real hard on the ground or stomp it and shake the bed, and then come outside. I would come outside with my flashlight, looking and seeing where they're at, and so I wrote a book. I wrote a book about Bigfoot. It's called The One Who Runs and Hides, and I detailed everything of my experiences from day one to the last page, and even more after I did that, because people want me to write a sequel on my book. And so I will do a sequel on the book. I just finished another book because I like writing. I do like writing. It's one gift I do have, and it's not about Bigfoot, but I started writing it, so I just finished it, and editing it, and hopefully get that published. But the Bigfoot book was a great success. So many people really enjoyed it, and so I detailed everything.
How did you come up with that title, Chris?
I'm sorry?
How did you come up with that title for your Bigfoot book?
Satoko is an Indian word for the one who runs and hides. That's what that means in a Native American. If you look up just Google Native American words for Bigfoot, and you'll find 1,000.
Of course, yeah.
They'll just all come down, all different names for Bigfoot. So,
and
so
that's
that
been
was,
your experience with them, because they have, but you've seen them running and hiding from.
Oh, Duffy.
Could you tell us that story about the one that you saw, Chris, running, that you said was running?
Oh,
through the
yeah.
forest?
Okay, the one running. Well, my friend that invited me to go on the property, this was in 2014, in April of 2014. It was in the spring, April 14th. I know exactly because my friend said, Chris, I was out walking in the back of the cabin in the woods, and I found this deer carcass. And he goes, I don't understand how any creature could eat a deer like this. And I said, what do you mean? He says, it's just the way it was and laid out. It says, what animal around here can do this? So I said, okay, I'm going to go check it out. So on my way out there looking, I find this 16-inch footprint that I made a casting on. So that's how I know it was April 14th, 2014. I made the casting, but on my way out there, I find the carcass. And in front of me is all this hair pulled from the carcass of the deer, and laid on the ground like a Persian rug, like it was being dried. Just perfectly, like 10 feet by 10 feet. All the hair from the deer was laid on the ground. The carcass was about 15 feet away from where the hair was.
I was just making sure they weren't drying out a pelt. When you said it was laid out like a Persian rug, I was like, was this one piece?
No, not one piece. It was just the hair removed. Gotcha. No skin involved. It was just all the hair removed, and it was just a nice square rectangle pattern. I mean, it was just laid out, and it was just, and I go, wow, that's pretty odd. And then I went over to the carcass, and the front and hind limbs were removed. All the rib bones were broken off on that, and it just had the back spine, no head.
Wow.
And that was it, and but I took photographs, I posted it on there, and then I decided, okay, I had my camera ready, and I started walking in a direction where I hear howls from the cabin. I knew in this direction going there, it was these cliffs that are part of the property. Mm-hmm. So I went walking in that direction, and it was maybe 30 yards from the top of the cliffs. As I'm walking up to it, I turn and look, and already in full motion is this skinny. I'm talking skinny. Now, that's not like any of the wide ones that you see or whatever. This Bigfoot was running, and he was running towards me. So, I'm just shocked right there and then because I'm seeing him. And I'm looking. Unfortunately, I wasn't thinking to get my phone out, even though I had it to video it. And he goes running like 75 yards before me, and then he runs by me. And then when he runs by me, he goes past this tree and didn't come past the tree.
Hmm.
And I'm going, how can something that fast just stop? It was impossible that something running that fast could stop on a dime like that. It was skinny, black as black, and just racing. And when it hit the tree, I didn't see it. Then I said, okay, I've been here now 6 years. I'm coming up to the tree and I'm going to confront you. That's my mind thing. By
Right.
then,
Because
I'm going
you're thinking he's behind the tree. He stopped
behind the tree. Yes. So I think I always brought food with me, Snicker bars and stuff like that. And my hand, you always can make friends with food by then. So I walked directly to this tree in the center. So if he comes out to the right or if he comes out to the left, Duffy, I'm going to find him. I'm going to see him. So I walk right to the tree, like a foot away, right in the center. And I go around to the left side of it I chose, and nothing was there. Nothing.
How wide was the tree?
I'd say the tree was maybe 25, 30 inches wide. I mean, it was a good sized tree.
Yeah, it's a big tree.
There were no leaves. You got to remember, April up there in the mountains, you have a late spring.
Yeah.
So you can see everything. The only thing that I thought was from that tree to the drop off to the cliffs was about, I'd say 30 feet. So, but still, he would have to immediately stop at the tree and then kick to the left to jump off the cliff. Why would he do that?
Yeah.
And that made me feel bizarre about, I started thinking this is not normal. I mean, there's no way something that fast can stop that quickly. So,
yeah, that is definitely odd.
Yeah, because he could go behind a tree and walk straight away from you and use it as cover, you know what I'm saying? To disappear in that regard. But like you said, something running like however fast it was going and then being able to stop. And even when you're expecting it to come up the other side, it sounded like.
I've seen many. I could say up to maybe 30. I mean, I'd be doing dishes in the cabin or cooking on the porch, and I'll look to my right and I see him in the distance, especially in the fall or in the spring. I could,
Yeah.
And I used to run out there and bring my video and try to get him, and I never would. So after a while, I just said, okay, I'll keep doing what I'm doing in the cabin and just watch him as much as I can until I don't see him anymore. Because once you go out there and you're looking, they disappear. But the thing is, I went from the beginning of where he started. When I turned my head and he was in full speed then, I mean, like I wrote in my book, Manute Bolt would lose to this guy, the Olympic, okay? But I went and crossed the path on how he was running on the cliff. There were trees knocked down, rocks and jagged, stones sticking out, and he didn't even miss a beat. Man, this was not, flat terrain. I mean, it's flat terrain, but there were so many obstacles, and he didn't fall.
All right, Chris. So I'm curious here. When this thing's running at you, like, what is the look on its face? What do you think it's thinking? It obviously knows you're there, right? Do you think it was kind of letting itself be known? What was it? What do you think it was thinking?
It was surprised. I think at first it was surprised because watching it run towards me from that distance coming, and like I said, I was probably, I would say maybe 30 yards at the most when he was on the peak on the top of the cliff, and as I was climbing up there, and he was running so fast. I mean, the hair was going backwards. I mean, like it was in a wind tunnel. He was just running so fast, and and seeing his face, and like I said, it's a flat face, and it just looked like he had to get somewhere. He had to get to a point, and like a surprise look. Yeah, maybe it was a surprise look. Um, I don't want to say he's nervous, but if the only other way I could describe it was surprised or nervous that I was there at that moment and seeing him, catching him, and
Sure. You think he's the one that killed that deer? You think that the deer kill was a direct relation to the ones whooping? Were they that
oh,
close that you didn't have to walk that far when you saw him, or what?
well, at first I said, yeah, it was him that probably did it. But as I learned in time that I had a family of them,
Right.
up to six living up at the cabin. There was a family of them, and I got to see a juvenile. I was out in the woods walking in the area, and all of a sudden this tree branch breaks in front of me, and boom comes down this juvenile Bigfoot, and he gets up, he looks at me startled. I'm looking at him startled, and he just starts to run. Now this was in October, and I could see him because the leaves were gone. It was like
Right.
mid to late October, and I see him, and it was like almost like a trail, like a flash, like the superhero, the Flash, where he leaves like a trail behind you, and he was zigzagging, going through the woods, and this is the paranormal side. The people are now. I am glad to hear in my time now this has been going on. People are coming around saying there is something paranormal about these beings.
What was
You know,
paranormal about it though?
the streak. He left a streak, almost like you could see him going through the woods, like there was a trail behind him. It was bizarre.
Oh
You don't
wow.
think it's just on how fast it was actually moving that it was like beating the perception of your mind? Like your mind couldn't even process what it was seeing because it was moving so fast?
All I can tell you, Duffy, is what I saw.
Sure.
Okay, and I wasn't drinking or getting high or anything like that. I been
Was it on 2 feet or 4 feet, Chris?
two 2 feet. It jumped down. Boom. We stare at each other, looking at each other. Then he just tears off, and this is 50 yards outside my cabin, and I was walking out there, and when I see him running away, if you ever seen the movie The Flash?
Sure.
Okay, when he runs, what do you see that comes behind him?
I get it. I get it. But
So when I see that going through, and I'm watching now, he went faster than the other guy, the other Bigfoot I described on the cliffs.
how
This
tall how tall was this little guy?
I say 5 feet,
Oh, 5 feet?
5 feet.
God.
After he goes, and I see him zigzagging like through the woods, just moving. By the time I walked up to the tree to inspect the branch of the
Yeah.
pick up and look at, I hear this big, huge tree break. Boom. And I said, okay, all right. I said, I know he went and got his parents or somebody that came back. So I said, okay, fine. I understand. I'm not going anywhere any farther. So I just stayed in the vicinity, just walking around there, hoping that maybe they will make themselves known, because they know by now, I mean no harm. They've
Sure.
watched me enough and
Sure.
living up there that they understand. But I knew the tree break, and I just okay, so I just stayed.
Yeah, it
But
sounds like they were giving you a sign for sure. It's interesting though you mentioned the Flash because I had seen maybe a 3 foot tall juvenile run away from me on all fours, and I compared it to the Disney cartoon The Gummy Bears, where they would drink this gummy berry juice and then be able to like leap, extremely far, and in a few jumps they could just be out of the picture because that's how this thing was. It was moving so fast, it was grabbing the ground with its hands and lunging itself forward, but it was amazing. Like it was faster than a gazelle. But then when you said it left that streak, I was thinking maybe it was a visual, whatever, something that wasn't there. But I kind of am getting what you're putting down now.
Now
Yeah.
that's the paranormal side of it, man. Like when you go out in the woods, and you, of course, you go out all the time, Duffy. Yeah, I'm not sure how often Wayne does, but you find a footprint, and it'll be a clear spot. Where are the other footprints? Why is there only one? Why isn't there another following it and following it? It is just so bizarre
Oh, I'm
that.
convinced that they stomp and leave footprints as much the landscape here in Colorado, and they probably are doing the same thing over there, where you find one stomp. I mean, you see Sasquatch, Ontario has one in the snow, and there's no explanation as to how that could have gotten there. But to be honest with you, I've seen times where they'll stomp their foot to make an impression to let the others in the area know this one, the size 15, boom, made a mark here, and they'll do it over and over as a signature. Just that's a potential, but that doesn't dismiss any paranormal stuff that people
Well, the
have
reason,
creatures.
the reason, Duffy, I'm saying, okay, so in Sasquatch and Tenor, when he stomped in the snow to make that one, where did his left or right of foot go after that?
Well,
I
that's
mean,
what I'm saying. They're not in the physical form at that point, but
oh, okay,
walking through
gotcha,
the woods in a physical form, if they
gotcha,
were to stomp their foot, because the
gotcha.
substrate, in those forests in New England, we know is, pine needles and
Yeah,
moss, and it's so hard to get a great impression. But that's how it is. So
yeah, that's correct. But it just so many people have gotten in touch with me about the same thing. They got a footprint. I always ask them, "Well, that's great. You got a casting. Did you get any more?" He said, "No, there was only just one there. It was along the riverbank. I go, okay, but no, I've seen so many sizes. No, the little feller, just one of many, and I know the one that I did that people talk about when I was with Wes on Sasquatch Chronicles. That was episode 506, and I got a lot of issues with that, where people thought I was crazy. Was when I came out of it was a summer night, dark night, no moon, and I came onto the porch, and I turned to my right, and I just, for the first time, and I didn't know this, and I was eager to see and bring out food, and by then I was putting food all out around the cabin, and this was 2016, to try to make some communication contact. From That's to the point I'm doing now, is trying to understand why they're here and make contact. And I walk out on the porch, and I see these huge glowing eyes coming again around 25, 30 yards from the cabin. So I said, wait a minute here. And I'm looking. So I went back inside, and by now I had some monstrous, flashlight. So I bring out this flashlight, and I shine it at him on the eye shine. And there is this Bigfoot, the biggest one I've ever seen. He was I measured it when he left from the tree. He was about 12 feet tall. He was wider than any door that I've seen or my refrigerator. And he was just staying there, swaying gently, like 3 to 4 inches from either side, just swaying. So when I put the flashlight on his face, he didn't like it. So he went to the side behind this big, huge maple tree that was there, and I took the flashlight down, and he came back out again. And then I just shined the flashlight at his feet area so I could just see a glow of him, and he was like a reddish brown color of a Bigfoot, hairy as can be. I mean, all over. It was hard to see his face. To look at it was flat again, but the eyes were like flashlights, orange and yellow mixed color, beaming out of his skull, just shooting out. And that was intimidating because I did want to go down and walk towards him, but when I saw that happen, um, decided, okay. So I went back into the cabin and grabbed a couple of apples, and I shined the flashlight on the deck on the railing. I put one apple there, and I took the other apple and just ate it. And I ate this apple so slowly for about 30 minutes, cornhole. I wasn't leaving, so I just, and making the sound that would know that I'm eating food. So he would walk to me. Now, if he walked to me, I was going to accept it with the eye shine, but I wasn't bringing the apple to him at that point. If he didn't show the eye shine, I would have went out to him. So I just sat there. I mean, stood up there and just ate it. And then I said, okay, I'm going to turn my back on you, sit on the chair on the deck, and wait for you to come. And you can take the apple and stay if you want to go. So I turned my back. I sat on the chair, and I waited maybe another 20 minutes, and I turned around, and he was still there doing the same thing, shining the flashlight at his feet, and he just didn't move from the position. And I was talking to him, here it is, come and get it. And so then, like another 15 minutes went by, and I went to sit down and turn my back again, and waited, got up, and he was gone and left the apple. So I left the apple out there all night, and when I came back in the morning, the apple was still there. But he was massive, bigger than anyone I've seen. I've seen quite a few, but the girth on him was mind-boggling. And the hair, the amount of hair he had, the hair was longer than the other ones I've ever seen.
Did he have hair? Yeah. Did it have hair on top of its feet?
Yeah, he had hair on top of its feet, or the hair from his ankles coming down to his feet. He was hairy. He had hair. His hair was covering his face, even though it was protruding with this beams coming out. But he was huge.
Do you think the hair was growing off of the top of his foot, or do you think it was just dangling down?
Oh God, I don't know, Duff. Honest to God, I couldn't answer to you on that. I think, I don't know. Did they grow hair? I think they probably grow hair on their feet.
Yeah, I didn't know.
I mean, but it was a male. It was not a female. But
okay,
he was just
Chris. How do you know that it was a male and not a female?
Because when I shined the light up towards face, I didn't see any breasts.
Okay. Did you ever see any genitalia?
No, it was so hairy, Wayne. He was hairy. I mean, the hair came out of the side of his head. It wasn't like it was like some of the Bigfoots I've seen, their hair is sort of like close to their heads, and you could see the ears and stuff. This particular one, Wayne, he was just covered. I mean, like a woolly mammoth blanket,
Wow.
I mean, it was just so long. I don't know if it's because of his height. Maybe he's that old, whatever. I mean, I don't know if they get haircuts or whatever, but I mean, this thing was just so long. I mean,
now, how far away again do you say?
I'd say 25 yards, maybe 30 at the most.
So you got a good look at its face, right?
Oh, well, yeah. What was covering it? Yes, but you got to remember the beams that were coming out. I mean, I shined the flashlight first at his face, and he did not like that. So he just immediately moved to the side behind the tree. Then when I put the flashlight down, he came out, and I just shined it on his feet to keep him there because I don't want him to get angry.
Okay.
So on that, but he was just gigantic.
Now,
they're all gigantic, but he was just different.
Chris, I'm curious. What is of all your experiences with these things on this property? What is the best look that you ever got at one's face? How far away and how long? Can you speak to that?
Well, the little one falling out of the tree, and the one running on the cliffs that ran past me. Yeah, and like I said, the little one, his face was more lighter color, not as dark. It was flat. Again,
Do they
uh,
have that gray skin, Chris?
no, I didn't see any gray skin on that. No, the one running across the cliffs went by me. His face was black as black. His hair was black as black. I mean, deep dark black, shiny. Because it was in the morning, about 10:30 in the morning, and the sun was hitting there, and he was shiny.
Mm-hmm.
And the little one, uh, he was more of a, you know, I would say like a dark brown,
Yep.
down brown in color, on that. But again, his face was flat, um, and the eyes looked dark that I saw
Cool.
on that part.
Def, I think you had an interesting question you wanted to ask, didn't you?
Oh, you gotta put me on the spot. Oh, well, you know what? I remember it now. Well, I was just wondering. You've seen them up close, right, Chris? And you've gotten some good looks at Sasquatches that are real, not a figment of your imagination. What do you think about the captures that Todd Standing has brought forth in those up close videos? Do you think those bear any similarities to any creature that you've ever seen, or do you think that those are more puppet looking?
Well, that's an excellent question. I mean, looking at the ones that I've seen that he did of the little one, they did not look like that. That almost looks like what are those things that are on Star Wars?
The
Those little, yes, something. The ones that I saw didn't. And from me speaking to people contacting me and asking questions about Sasquatch and Bigfoot and what they saw and whenever wanted to talk to me about it, I always ask about the face. And some of them have said their face had a more human-like look to it.
Certainly.
That they had, some looked really human-like, and
What
but
about
my
what you've seen, though, Chris? Are you saying that you've seen human-looking ones, or are they ape-like?
no, the ones I've seen are not human-looking ones. No, no, not at all. Face is flat, like I said, like a gorilla, almost like a gorilla's face.
Okay.
Flat, just flat. Now I don't know if up in New England that's what the way they are, but I spoke to some people in Pennsylvania and in Virginia and up in Michigan, and they described that their jaw and their cheekbones and everything were more pronounced coming out. Which I was surprised about. I thought they all looked like what I have, but no. People have different, experiences, encounters on their appearance.
So just to get a clear answer on that, you think the ones by Todd Standing probably I'll say they don't look like the ones that you've seen.
No, they don't look like the ones that I've seen. At all. So I can say that. Some say that it's not real, and some people believe that it is real. So I don't know, on that. But from what I have seen in my lifetime, the face is just more of a flat looking face. It really is. It doesn't the jawline or the cheekbones don't stick out.
Even on that large red one, it had a flat face, huh?
Yeah, well, for the large one, with the eyes beaming, it had to be. You could see the hair. His hair was, like.
No, I get what you're saying, because I think those orange, sometimes they're orangutan looking.
Yes, yes, yes.
Anyway, so
correct. It was, but he stood there for over an hour, man. I mean, but he got pissed when he did not like getting the flashlight in his eyes when his high beams were on himself. I mean,
they were on the whole time, because you saw that his eyes were illuminated when you walked out, right?
Yeah, they were illuminating. They were just illuminating.
You think he was there just waiting for you then?
Oh, no, they were waiting for. They're always waiting. They've come up on my deck and moved the furniture around. They ripped into. I don't know if you saw the video. They ripped into the screen porch. Yeah, they took the screen right from the tip of the the porch and gently ripped it down without tearing it on that, and then gently tear down the other one. So they stepped in. They went after my scented candles. I had apple flavor, green and red apple flavor, and some other flavor candles that I would just light out there and sit in the dark and and light them. And they went and grabbed them. And I still got a few, and they bit them. They ate them. They were tasting them. But it was odd, and I showed that on the video. This was not made by a bear, because the bear has broken in my cabin several times, going through the porch, knocking over the charcoal grill, going in, opening up my refrigerator and the freezer, and they leave a mess, and they leave their hair. And this was nothing like that. He did knock down a few things, but if you saw the video, and I filmed that exactly when I was getting on to the deck, and I looked over, and there it was. It was. I knew something went in, and I thought it was a bear at first, but then I looked how gently, because the bears would scratch my screens and breaking them in and knock them down flat, and this was gently pulled from the corner and slowly ripped off the sides so it could step in.
So they're trying to tell you that they want some apples. I take it.
Well, whatever. I left them pizzas. I left them Snicker bars. At one time, Wayne and Duffy, I had 13 cameras. I mean, everywhere around the perimeter, everywhere. And I would have, a Snickers bar, an apple in the center of a tree, and I'd have 4 or 5 cameras around it.
Did you ever catch anything?
Well, that was the thing. Then the next morning, I said, I got you this time. No way you're going to. Nothing. I would see that the next video would be a bird, or a blue jay flying by, or a squirrel climbing up the other tree, or whatever like that. Nothing. And it was so frustrating. And that's what I wrote about, man. I mean, it was just digging in, trying to come up with some solutions. And, I was leaving chicken legs and pork chops and beef out there, and I had the cameras all around facing it, and then all I was getting was like turkey vultures, raccoons, possums coming around in front of the video camera, and nothing with Bigfoot. So I said, screw this, I'm not doing this anymore, because it was costing me. So I went and I bought wind chimes, and I bought bells that you could hang on trees.
Mm-hmm.
And the wind chimes I got were all natural, like nature. It would be one of a dragonfly, and then another one of a ladybug, and another one of a frog, or whatever. And I put the wind chimes throughout the property, and then I would set the camera up. And then when I went back up there to check, and now I carried I showed this on my website. I carried this step ladder. I tied it on my back, and I showed the whole procedure, going out in the woods and hanging up the wind chimes and so on. And when I came back, the wind chime was down on the ground. So was the bells that I hung next to it. And as I climbed up 3 feet up the step ladder and then hung it up on the tree, I figured one thing, no animals are going to be interested in it. And I made it high enough that if he had to reach and play with it, I would get a video shot of it. So when I found them both lying down on the ground, I was so happy, and I remember walking back one time towards the cabin, and I hear something following me. And I would walk. This was in January, and it was a warm January thaw, early January or so. And it was like in the 50s or so. So I was up there, and as I was walking back, there was no snow on the ground at that time, and I started hearing them this footsteps following me. So I'd stop, it would stop. I kept on going. Every 20 feet, 25 feet, I'd stop, it would stop. And that was one of them, besides hearing the tree being ripped off, the bark strips being ripped off the tree when I first got there, that was one of the most terrifying, because I knew I was being hunted. I knew then it was following me. and I was probably almost not a half a mile away from the cabin, but pretty close. So I kept on walking, and the sun was setting, and and I finally I got to the cabin. And when I saw the cabin about 100 yards away, I booked, just ran to the cabin, and I got inside. I went and got my binoculars, and as I'm combing the area, I'm going there. I see him. He's right by a tree, standing, looking towards me at the cabin. So I went past him, and then when I zoomed back to see him, because I was just combing cinematic wise from left to right, and I went back to look, he went behind the tree. And I stayed and I watched that tree, but then he followed me to the cabin on that. And that figure, there was 100 yards or so away, but like I said, it was January. He was staying on the side, but that was scary.
I presume that you have been able to feed these things since. And did you come to the realization that you were unable to leave cameras up if you were to interact with these creatures? Or
Exactly.
What were your thoughts on that, please?
Well, I gave up on that. They knew that I had cameras. So, like I said earlier, my goal was to understand and make contact of. So I took down all the trail cameras, brought them inside the house, and I just wanted to, see if they would come closer, approach me more, feel more comfortable, in which they did. I mean, they know what a trail camera is. Do not think they don't know what infrared is. And I know they come out now with some that don't show the infrared, and you might get lucky to get one there. They do make mistakes. Okay, the one that I did that with the broken trail camera that I fixed and put on the inside of my porch, he walked by, he didn't see it because the infrared didn't come on. But they do make mistakes, but they know every move, usually what you're doing. They really do. When you're out in the woods looking for them, they don't want you to be seen, themselves to be seen. They won't. And so taking down the trail cameras, I like I said, I'd be doing the dishes or something inside, walking to the bathroom, whatever. I look out the window and I'll see in the distance one of them walking down, just walking. And I would run out there at the beginning, bring my camera and try to film them, and I couldn't find them. And then after a period of 6 months, 8 months, whatever, every so often, I just watch them. I just would sit and enjoy watching them.
Are you still going up to the cabin times and having interactions with these creatures?
Not at the moment, because when COVID hit, people from Manhattan, some family members down there had to come and get out of Manhattan, so I had to leave the cabin.
Okay.
So
now, do you know if the people that are staying there now, have you talked to them? Are they having any interactions?
Well, that's a good point. No, when COVID it was just like everybody's going to stay away, whatever. Now that the weather will be in April and so on, the weather will be warmer. Wayne, I hope to go back up to the cabin and find out what's going on up there, and can I go back.
But you're probably, do these people know that you're having interactions with Bigfoot or no?
Well, that's a good point, because my friend that introduced me to the cabin, I gave him the book when I had to leave 2 years ago, when COVID was starting. So I had to give him the book. And I mean, it's funny that I wrote into the book, because you if you ever want to read it, or you can get the first 75 pages for free, or you can hear it on audio, whatever. I come across a DEP officer that was hunting on the property since 1982. This property was built in the 30s. They bought it and so on, the 800 acres. And he comes over, and I was with a friend of mine, and we're sitting on the porch, and he comes up to the porch, and he just doesn't introduce himself. And he walks up and looks at me and says, "What are you doing here? Looking for Bigfoot?" And I was shocked. Now this was in 2012. Okay, so it's 4 years gone. So I did buy some trail cameras, and he found one of my trail cameras around the property. I had like 5 or so, and he took one. I knew because I was missing one. And I looked at my friend who was with me, and I, been discussing about, with Bigfoot and what I believe and everything then. And he says to me, "What are you looking for, Bigfoot?" I said, "No, what makes you see that?" "I'm just asking." I'm asking. So he came and told me that, he does a lot of hunting on the property and so on. And that this year he'll be hunting in this part of the property, and his father will be hunting in this part of the property, and that I can hunt down below where nobody's going to be. So I said, "Okay, no problem on that." And then maybe a month later, I'm working underneath the cabin trying to fix a pipe that was leaking with my friend that introduced me to the property. And he's sitting down there, and he goes, "Chris, I want to let you know that that DEP officer, he went to the board of trustees on the property and said he wanted me to get off the property. I shouldn't be there because I believe in Bigfoot, and that if word gets out there, that I'm talking about Bigfoot, everybody's going to want to come and trespass on the property, and it's going to ruin everything, the wildlife and the whole bit, and basically his hunting or whatever." And he asked to get rid of me, tried to get me no longer to be on there and watching the place. The trustee members, thank God, thought he was going a little bit overboard on what he requested. And this is my friend telling me this, as we're underneath the cabin welding. And he goes, they said, "No, not good enough," So they allowed me to stay. And because I was keeping my eyes, because there were break-ins and so on. Even the cabin I was in was broken into when I wasn't there. But they liked me being around. But back then, the first thing out of his mouth, I mean, this guy was a military soldier, went to find out, was in the first war with Iraq, and he was all businessman, and he was not happy that I was there. But yeah, so they know. DEP knows all about this.
Yeah.
Do not think they don't. They're not aware.
Well, that's the he comes and asks you, "What are you looking for, Bigfoot?" As though you're not supposed to be. And,
doesn't even introduce himself. "Hey, how are you? I'm Sergeant whatever this," and I called him Sergeant Slaughter in the book. That's what I wrote about him in the book. He was really, he belonged into a wrestling ring. I mean, he was a monster of a man, and but all business, and he was.
Yeah, I think we all would agree that the government knows about these things. Just about every branch of the government knows.
Well, there's got to be protocol to cover it up, because once it happens once, then it's, hey, next time this happens,
Yeah. Chris, I want to take this opportunity to thank you again for taking the time to come on and hang out with us.
Yeah, Chris, thank you for coming on the show, man. I really appreciate it. You have some great stories, and I know they're in your book, which you can remind people where to pick up. So yeah, thanks again for coming on.
Oh, no, thank you. I really appreciate coming on the show. I had a lot of fun. And if people do want to read my story about my life being on the mountain for 12 years, it's called The One Who Runs and Hides. You can get it on Amazon. I've been blessed. I've got a lot of great reviews about it. So I'm thankful about that. And that's all I can say. Keep squatching, everybody. They're out there. Be a believer. And again, thank you for having me on.
UnsCryptid is a Manimal Research production. Produced by Wayne Tutherow. Edited and produced by Jameson Duffy. All audio used is protected by fair use.